Hello again, Hong.
Hello.
Hello, how are you? We
Not bad,
meet
you?
again.
Yes,
Is
yes.
it cold?
Yes, getting cold now. You can see I wrapped up.
Me too. I've got my hoodie on.
That's all right. Keeping you warm.
Yes,
That's important.
keeping me warm. Are your kids gone to bed or not quite yet?
Not quite yet. They are watching TV at the moment.
Same with mine.
Yeah, give me 1 sec.
That's okay. You go ahead.
I'm gonna... They need to shout you. Yeah. Sorry, you just remind me. Actually, I should check in with my husband to see whether he can do it or not. I'll just assume that he will do it, but I didn't do the last check-in.
That's right. Never assume. Oh, good. Yeah. Excellent. All righty. I'm going to do a little bit of setup, but before I start as well, in terms of a call to action at the end, would you like me to ask people to visit your website? Where would you like them to go and to contact you?
They can go to our website to see what we offer, or give me an email or call me. Doesn't matter. I'm happy to do either way. Give me a bell. People like to call.
ppcurban.com.au. And would you say you are predominantly town planners, or would you call yourself consultants, or how would you?
I wouldn't just call myself a town planner, because of our needs assessment, market research is actually the major service.
Okay.
So it's 50-50 in terms of workload. And,
okay. So development consulting?
Property consultant.
Okay.
Development consultant, investment consultant, planning and investment consultant.
Planning and investment consultants. Okay. Does your husband work in the business with you as well?
Yes.
Nice.
That's right. Yeah. Planning and investment consultant.
Excellent. When did you start the business?
Not that long. We started in 2017. We established PPC Urban. And before that, I was working as a freelancer and also doing government job as well, working for the government in the meantime.
Okay.
So the company was established in 2017. But we had a lot of business coming through already in 3 years.
That's excellent. And when say for example, we get a lot of questions in terms of financial feasibilities. So feasibilities for sites and things like that. Is that something that you just offer as a specific service? Like if someone has a site and they go, I need to get a feasibility done.
I would ask what kind of feasibility you're talking about. Is talking about development yield, cash flow, market assessment.
Development yield.
Yes, we do development yield, yes.
Okay, land demand and supply assessments. Oh, that's interesting too.
So in my old job, I used to do a lot of retail, housing, commercial, industrial modeling.
Yes.
That's when I left the firm, I expanded that to healthcare and childcare. Because excellent. The modeling is very similar, just assumptions are different.
Excellent. Excellent. So okay. Excellent. No, it's really good to know. Again, obviously we're only talking about sort of the childcare side of things, but I want people to be able to know what else that you do as well. So at the beginning, I'll do a brief intro about what you do, and then I'll hand it over to you because you can explain what you do much better than I can. But I think that's the main thing that we want to differentiate as well, that it's not just the planning side of things, it's the market assessments, which I think is a really important part of that, because a lot of people, particularly when they're looking at these childcare, medical, and even just with developments in general, that's a part that they probably don't know where to get the information from, or don't know how to assess the demand and supply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And then
Cool.
this case study is very, very handy that is recommended.
Yes. Yes.
So I actually introduced 2 case studies. One is a current case that the site actually is currently for sale. We did a combined assessment, and the results actually the medical center stands out better than childcare center.
Oh, okay. See, that would be a really interesting one. Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then I got a second case study which says that the demand there, but it's not great demand, but we can take some current market share. So in the end, the clients decide. So we estimated 50 to 65 places plus some current market share. So in the end, the clients decide to go with 73, and then the rest of the surplus land will go for housing development. So in that way, they mitigate their risk, they diversify their profile, and then they can maximize the return.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, I think that's a goal at the end. So thank you so much for the
those are really, really good. I really like that. Excellent. I love, because people want to see the practical application of that. But again, when they're able to see the outcomes, then it's fantastic. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, I'm just going to set it up. Property development, Australia. And how do I pronounce your surname? Is it Noling?
Yes.
Okay, good. Always want to make sure. Childcare centers and the case studies, did you put them up towards the end?
Yes, right towards the end.
Okay, that's good. All right, we have 5 minutes, so we can relax for a bit. If you need to use the toilet, if you need to, have a drink, or you have any questions for me, that's totally fine.
No, I'm happy, I think.
It's PPC Urban planning. So between you and your husband, do you have any particular, how do you guys share the workload in your business?
So I'm the one driving the business.
Mhm.
Okay, so my husband supports me, and I've got 3 more staff working under us.
Okay, yeah.
So 2 are consultants. They both have an architecture degree background, and then they're doing lots of town planning and market assessments for us. And then we got a third person. He is the BDM, business development manager. Yeah.
Okay, Yang Chen.
Yes.
Okay, and do you when you do the market assessment, is that can that be for any type of development? When I say any type of residential development?
Yes, it does. It includes, because for housing, even for apartments, right, or townhouses, so some area that you may have a more family household, so people for more family moving in. So when you do townhouse development, you probably won't go to two bedroom townhouses. You probably will go bigger townhouses in a way. And then some area that even closer to more single professionals, you say 2-bedroom townhouse will be more than adequate, or smaller size of 2-bedroom or larger size. Yeah. So you will do some feasibility market assessment anyway in any developments.
Yes. Yes.
But because housing development is more common to most of developers, so they would have some understanding or some experience in that space. They wouldn't be that new.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, so in childcare center and the medical healthcare project will be completely different stories, because the modeling is very different.
Because I think like a lot of people, in terms of they assess sort of demand and supply probably through talking to agents and things like that. But obviously you're using a lot more data driven analysis.
Exactly. We don't make it up.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, I mean, like, how much of that assessment would be dependent on talking to agents and all of that, or is it purely from historical data, like data, or is it mainly data driven?
So for we will need to talk to the operators and also the agent. Yeah. So depending which part. So if we talk about the side of the revenue component, yeah, you will be more likely to talk to the agent. But if we are talking about the supply and the demand, or we are talking about the needs assessment, we need to talk to the operators, get a first-hand information if there's any waiting list at your center. You know, either full or either occupied or not occupied. How you're coping with COVID situation. So because we heard that from the private operator, and that they say they're expecting 80 to 90% of the operational performance prior to COVID is expected. So that means that they will have an impact on their business.
Yeah, of course.
So you need really, in our modeling, we will look at past data, but in the meantime, looking at a local area, how those centers are performing.
Okay, and that'll be interesting. I'll ask a question around COVID as well, because it'll be interesting to understand how you do your modeling around that. Because obviously you're considering it in your modeling as well now, which yeah, I think that would be an interesting question. Cool.
Yeah, to some degree we consider the COVID impact, but because we haven't got a lot of government information or the records, we are still learning as we go.
Yes.
We can't really make up a lot of assumptions. But over the longer period, I don't think that we'll have major impact in a way. Yeah. So we have given some consideration to the COVID impact.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think there's still going to be huge demand for childcare. In any case. So okie dokie, I'm going to hit the go live button. Ready to roll?
Oh, yes.
Alrighty. All right, just loosen yourself up. All good to go. I'm really easy. I don't bite. So here we go.
Hello.
Not yet. When you see the live, oh, here we go. And hello, good evening. Welcome to the Business of Property. I'm your host, Cheryl Leong from Property Development Australia. I'd love to welcome Hong Noling from PPC Urban Consulting. How are you doing, Hong?
Yeah, not bad. You? How about you, Cheryl?
Absolutely well, thank you very, very much. Hong, I have had quite a few people reach out to me asking me about childcare centres, and this is the reason why we've invited you here today, because honestly, there are not that many people that I know that are really experts in this space, and we get this question all the time. Is our childcare centres a good investment? Where do we invest? How do we assess the demand and supply of an area to dictate whether childcare centres or something else, even medical centres, are worth looking at? So, Hong, welcome, and tell us a little bit about what it is that you do at PPC Urban to our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. So PPC Urban, we are based in Melbourne, but we work across Australia. We are a team of town planners and market researchers, and we facilitating town planning application, property developments, and also rezoning, master planning, along with our major service is needs assessment to understand the supply and demand for childcare, healthcare, and other projects. In my past role, I used to do lots of retail, housing, commercial modeling, industrial modeling. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Excellent. And when you talk about the modeling and demand and supply, why is that such a critical part of childcare centre developing and investing?
Because experienced operators will find out hard to make the business viable if there's too much supply or not enough demand. For those childcare, healthcare, and other business, it is important to find a market that there's a strong demand for it. Yeah. And before you either design the building, because the beautiful building, if it's not in the right spot, really can't make work.
Yeah.
So that's a very important piece of work you have to do, before you invest time and money getting the design out of the way. Yeah.
So I'll jump into the question very early on. Is there is there any indication in any of the states that you've seen that there is an oversupply of childcare centres?
Well, I have seen oversupplied markets in all states. So
Okay.
it's about the local market characteristics, I suppose. You need to really dive into the particular area that you are interested in. Either you are buying, or you already own the site, you want to develop the site, or you want to run a business there. Really, you have to be careful where you choose. But overall, the childcare industry is a growing industry, and it is strong demand in many cases.
So how are people able to assess then, and I guess this is where you come in, assess where to avoid the areas that are oversupplied and where there is demand? What is it that you are able to help developers do in your business?
Well, our job is we can help the clients in many ways. Firstly, we can help them to find the right market, the market where the operators want to be, and you can ask for good return. Yeah. And that we can help the clients to design, to get government approval for the building. And we can help the clients to get through the licensing stuff. But that's not our core business. Our core business is more front end of the asset management, and also how you want, whether it's a good investment to go in there.
Do you also assist developers in connecting them with the operators that are looking for areas?
Yeah, I do know a lot of operators. If there's opportunity arising, so I would do that. But yeah.
Excellent. Okay. I know you've prepared a little something for us to go through today. What I really am excited about is that we've got some case studies as well to really have a look to see how the application of this assessment of whether areas are feasible or not feasible for childcare centres. Again, I think a lot of people look at childcare centres and they've got dollar signs in their eyes going, lots of children, must be very profitable. And so I think it's I mean, it can be, I'm sure it can be, but there are obviously a lot of things that we need to assess to determine that whole supply and demand as to whether a childcare centre is feasible. And then I know one of the case studies you talked about was even being able to compare between, a childcare centre and possibly even a medical centre, which again is another really interesting topic. So I'd love for you, Hong, when you're ready, to take us through a little bit of a journey through developing and investing in childcare centres. Anyone that's listening and has joined us this evening, thank you so much. Please pop in your comments on the Facebook page, and when it's sort of appropriate, I can ask Hong any of your questions there. Are we dealing with small independent operators or larger franchise operators? Oh, that's question number one, Hong.
Doesn't matter. Just as long as they want to run the business, they are all looking for the similar element or the same element there. They want to go for a good market, good site, and good design. So I will touch that on those elements in the presentation later on. But yes, so these principles applicable to smaller or independent operators.
Okie dokie. I'm excited. Over to you.
Okay, cool. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen or not?
Yep, perfect.
Can you see my presentation?
I can. Did you want to make it full screen?
Like that?
There we are. Yes. Excellent.
Okay. Good. Okay. Just 1 second. Oopsie. I have touched base on that. We are a team of town planners and market researcher, and PPC Urban is committed to make property investment easy for our clients. And I think let's talk about me a little bit. I suppose before we give you all the tips, I think it's important for you to know who we are and what I do, our team does. So in that way, that can give you some confidence as to our expertise. So I have over 15 years experience in property development, working across public and private sector. I'm town planner, doing lots of development approval, master planning, rezoning proposals, and I'm a market researcher. And I have done a lot of supply and demand assessments for residential, industrial, commercial, childcare, healthcare projects. And we work across all states and territories. Okay, let's talk about childcare. The drivers in childcare investment, investing in childcare center is becoming more popular. And it is a growing industry, as we talked about before. And the reason for that is because there's continuous increase in government funding and support over the years, and will continue. And with low capital requirements, so you pretty much just land acquisition or building the new centers. An increasing female labor force participation rate, and that is these rates are projected to increase over the years, in coming years, and that will help to drive the demand for childcare centers. Reversionary and redevelopment potential. What I mean is a childcare center could be redeveloped for housing or other development site at the end of the life cycle of a childcare center building or business. It is childcare.
Sorry, Hong, just on that point.
Yeah.
What would you determine as the life cycle? Because I actually didn't even think there was a life cycle. I just thought that you would just be a childcare center forever and ever. Amen. So is there typically an average life cycle to a childcare center?
Well, yes or no. The reason for saying that, because it's all about the expectation of the family in the area. Yeah. So the area that regenerate a lot, like more family, more influence, different cultural background, people moving, they have different expectations of the building and the facilities. So in that way, you may have to do some renovation or redevelop the whole site completely. Right? So if the area is not going through the major changes over a short period, or and maybe the life cycle can be extended longer. So typically, when you talk about the leasing, right, we talk about the initial 15 years lease, and then plus 2 optional terms, and maybe 5 or 10 years each term. So you're talking about 30, 40 years already. So it is not a short period. It's a long period. But in the area where there are more different family, different culture, it's more about demographics. So what people want, what the family wants in the area. So you will have that may influence the building, the life cycle of the business.
Excellent. And the average you're going to dive into long-term leasing. What is the average leasing term for? Is it an operator that's leasing the childcare center?
Yes, normally its first term would be 15 years plus 2 more option terms, and then 2 more each option term. Generally speaking, about 5 to 10 years each term.
And how often are there sort of rental increases, or is that a fixed rate for 15 years?
No, it will have an annual increase, roughly about 3% in most of cases. But I have come across some situation with 2% or no percentage increase. But generally speaking, it's fixed 3 years plus around fixed term, gross term. Yeah.
Excellent.
Annually. Yeah.
Okay. Please go ahead.
That's all right. Good questions, Cheryl. And also they have a good risk profile, because once the tenancy are taken by operators, doesn't matter they are franchise operators or independent operators, and they're committed to a long period. So the risk is lower, not like you renting the house out year by year. And high revenue growth rate. So this growth rate is going to project to be around 3.5 to 4%. for the next 5 years. Strong building depreciation. Most of buildings are specifically designed, and the new center can be strongly depreciated from a tax benefit perspective. So that's the key drivers in childcare investment. There's many other more, but there's major ones. Let's talk about how we define successful investment here. When we talk about investment, we talk about investment in the business, if you're the operators. If you are investment in assets, you acquire the land, you're building the new centers, or you're acquiring the center that is already occupied as landlord taking cash flow. And then and the successful investment in my mind is also you need to have operators on board. Either take out a new lease or already in operation. And also, I believe good financial return should be expected if you're doing it right. There are 3 factors: market intelligence and feasibility, land attributes, town planning, and legal. So these 3 components are applicable to all kinds of development. Housing developments, like townhouses, broad acre subdivision, you need to know what the people want, lot size, the net developable areas, accommodation, if you propose to do a resort or housing for people with special needs, NDIS, SDA, or do a retail if you're Asian background, you want to do an Asian supermarket, for example, or you want to run a play center, healthcare facilities, medical, online health, hospital, retirement villages, childcare centers. So all things you are doing, you need to really know what's the market there. Is there any unmet market demand? Is there what kind of return you're expecting? Is the land big enough for what you wanted to do? Is there what kind of access we're talking about? And town planning control, are you legally allowed to put for a childcare center? Will you get approval for that? So those elements are all applicable to all the developments. But I think today Cheryl have me here just to talk about childcare centers, right? And I think we are focusing on the market intelligence and feasibility for childcare centers. So what matters to operators, as I said to you before, it's important to get operators on board. A talented site, the center, worth a lot more. So you always need to get the operators on board. So what operators are looking for is a strong local market. It's a lower level supply. The demand is always need to be more than supply. Not just now, but also in the future, because they take out the lease expecting to be in the business at that location for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So we are looking at the future. The financial viability of a competing center, how the other centers are performing. So can the market support another center right now without interrupting other people, other business? And what kind of growth, population growth there? Need to be solid population growth for the children aged under 5 for childcare centers. And who are those people living within this market? This is very important to know their background, their employment level, socioeconomic profile. The couple family household intend to have a greater percentage of couple family household intend to utilize more formal care, when by mean formal care is childcare centers. It's one of the formal care. So we really need to look into the demographic characteristics of the area. And the second
So I was going to say, I mean, this is obviously very, very data driven from that aspect. So in terms of, I mean, like how does what do you look for when you're talking about demand and supply? Are there numbers that you're looking at, or is it a percentage? How does that assessment look like?
So in order to make childcare centers viable, generally speaking, the operators are looking for at least having a 70% occupancy rate. Mm-hmm. So a center, for example, a center with 100 kids, 100 places, you need to have 70 children filled out. the places. If anything under, it can be tricky. So when the operator come into, when they want to create a new business in an area, they want to know how does it others are performing.
Yeah.
That's a benchmark. You know, they're performing well, then maybe that's good news. If they don't, we don't ever go there.
Yeah. Is there a particular sort of sweet spot for the number of places in a childcare center?
Yes. So every state they perform differently. In I have a slide to talk about local market characteristics by state. So every state perform differently. So as a rule of thumb, we use 3 children to 1 place as a benchmark. It's Australian wide. That's where they currently sit. We can talk about that ratio, the children per place ratio later on. But yeah, you're right. There's assessment need to be done to understand, you know, whether the market is how we determine the market is a balanced market, under supply market, or oversupply market.
Yeah. And so there's a bit of forecasting here as well, because you're talking about population growth of young children.
Correct.
Yeah. So you're looking at areas where there are going to be young families that are moving into, and does that mean that they're generally newer areas, newer greenfield areas?
Not always. So the infill area that, you know, is also can also expecting massive growth area. Yeah, gentrification. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes I actually came across a site, I wouldn't tell the location, but I came across a site in the growth area, and you naturally expecting, you know, there will be solid demand, right? But somehow that spot, I think the demand is reasonably okay, in a nice way. And just because there's lots of people have the same view, just childcare everywhere. And also the reshape of the school zone, you may have heard the news. Yes. Reshape the school zone will have an impact on where the people travel, where the family travel to.
Yeah.
Because childcare, if you're close to the primary school, is a good spot. But if the school zone got reshaped dramatically or resized, and that will have an impact on your business over the longer term. Maybe not in the next 1 or 2 years, but over the longer term, they will have impact.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. On to the next one.
The next question matter that operator want to see is a right side. So they are looking for good arterial road visibility, the easy access for them to drop the kid and pick up the kids. And again, they ideally want to close to school, workplace hubs, shops, and destinations. You know, railway stations sometimes can be a good call. And university, you say university, the older students, they may drop their kids to university when they study. So, but the demographic of university students is another thing to look at. So there's a lot of interlinked. So you need to really think about that, you know, where you want to position. But commonly, it's a school, employment hubs, and shopping center or medical major active centers. Those are 3 major things you're looking at. And I have put down here a wisely sized center, and that linked to the demand. So if the demand, you don't, the last thing we want to do is you overdevelop the site. So for example, the market may support, say, 80 places center, but you develop 120 places center. So you are over capitalized the site. And the operators, you will find it really hard to lease to the operators, because operators have to pay by place, the rental by place. If they can't fit it out of the places, they are losing the money. The business is not viable. So this is very important. You need to consider what's the size of center you are looking for. And also, I put down here a functional and well-designed center, design compliance. Because getting a town planning approval and building approval is important. But you also need to get the state government licensing, state government license for the new center and the Commonwealth government approval for the benefit. But what they're looking at is a very specific design. So you're looking at X amount of square meters per child, indoor and outdoor. So town planning approvals, they don't really look at this component. So you really need to find the right planners and architect to help you out. I have seen so many designs that, right, got town planning approval, take to the market. I think this is not the best design, put it another way. So if you better design, you can get a much more return in the rental and more interest from the operators.
When you talk about not overcapitalization, you gave the example of, there is a demand for about 80 spaces. Is it better for developers or investors to, say, provide a center with 60 spots so that that you're always going to be full, or err on the side of more caution, going, okay, 80, but then we might have some vacancies?
I think go for the smaller centers than what's estimated for the demand. It's a safe bet, okay? But I think I don't want to go for too small. The sweet spot for childcare center, at the moment, you're looking at around 70 to 100 places a center. But in 5-7 years ago, I have come across 190 places center. Hello.
Any childcare centers open right now?
You can send a childcare center.
190 spots.
Yes.
Wow, that's big.
That's massive. So yes. The operators, they have a journey, right? So 5-7 years ago, they were really fascinated about big centers, modern state-of-art facilities. And then they will come down to somewhere between around 100, 120, like medium-sized center. I think because of COVID, the strength even further down to somewhere between 70 to 100, around that sweet spot. So it's not massively big, but it's big enough to make that work. If for smaller centers, I come across many sites, for smaller centers, it sometimes can be very hard to make them up, just because of staffing ratio, the facility you have to provide, even the cook chef, on-site chef, you know. Yes. So that when you add all the operating costs together, the staffing, the salaries together, it's really, you need to look really target somewhere between 70 to 100 places per center. That's a current sweet spot for that.
Yeah, that's really good to know.
Any other questions?
Oh, let me see. I'm getting too excited. Not at the moment.
Okay, let's dive into the local market characteristics. So because I don't have any sites at the moment, so I'm just looking by state. So you can see every state, they perform very differently. So children per place ratio, and this is 2019 data, end of 2019, the third quarter data. Queensland ACT, you are looking at 2.2, just over 2 children per place. While WA, you look at 4 children per place. On average, Australian-wide, 3 children per place. New South Wales and Victoria, around 3. So every market is different. And if you talk about how many hours that children attend at a long day care center per week, and every state has different hours there. So that's why we can't really apply. So if you give me a project in WA, I will use a different model in different submissions, because the local people there, they're using the centers differently than people in Victoria.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So talk us, and just if you can talk us through what children per place ratio means as well.
Oh, thank you. That's the total population of the children aged under 5 and divide the number of places of the childcare centers within the catchment that we define. So we customize the catchment area. Also, in this way, it's by state, there's no question, right? But when we do a needs assessment, we customize the catchment to tailor for the particular project. And then we investigate, we do a comparative analysis and understand how many places at each center, their age, how they're performing, and then we come up with a strategy to the clients that, that what kind of places, children per place ratio they have got now, and where these centers sit and fit in this local market. We talk about the national quality standards, the education standards. So every state, some market are exceeding education standards. Some areas are developing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very different market casting. You need to look at.
Interesting. Okay, and it's
so. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go. You go ahead. I was still sort of processing in my mind the children per place ratio, but more so, how do you determine the catchment area? Is that I'm assuming according to particular councils and all that, but is there a set structure of what makes a catchment?
You're looking at, generally speaking, 1.5 to 2 kilometers radius, but you also need to factor into, the creek, freeway, some just geographical components there. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No. Please go ahead.
Sure. Good questions, Sarah.
I'm listening. I am listening.
You are, very carefully too. All right. So let's move on to the case studies. I have prepared 2 case studies here.
Excellent.
So the case study 1 is a real case. It's in Boronia in Victoria. It is within Knox City Council area in the Melbourne eastern suburbs. It has 2,000 square meters in size. It is within a major activity center, Boronia Activity Center. Has a main road frontage. It's currently for sale at the moment, so feel free to look at it. So our involvement with this project is we completed a combined childcare needs, medical needs assessment, just basically to compare, to look at what kind of demand and supply for childcare in the area and the medical, compare between 2 options, which one's the best. And then we also conducted a review of town planning controls and development yield estimate. Feel free to go to the website, realestate.com. If you're interested, get a report.
Come to me. Excellent. Are you able to share a little bit about what that assessment came up with? Was it a matter of whether it was a childcare center or a medical center or a combination of both? Here we go. Here's the results.
You read my mind. So I just did a case study. I thought just putting the fact that in to give you perspective. So childcare proposal, we believe the balanced market. The ratio is just over 3 to 1. It is not a bad number. It's a good number. And then also the occupancy rate on average is 70%. So you tick all the hard boxes. The gross potential there. So we do modeling, we look at the market, we make some adjustment to the modeling assumption based on the local market characteristics. And then we modeled 14 to 18 places. Okay. We have noted there's an external demand there. So depending on the scope of works, right? For this particular project, we haven't gone to the external demand, but we do calculate it. I can tell you in a minute. And the policy support, okay, it's none. So that is the childcare proposal. And the medical component, we also determine is a balanced market. And then we also found out there's a very high history rate for GP attendance per capita per person on average. And it's also greater percentage of people age over 65. And the ratio, and we are looking at 1 full-time service equivalent GP for just about 900 people. So based on those elements, because we also look in medical center, we also look at local health, community health profile. to make a determination or recommendation to the client. And based on that, we think it's a balanced market. And we projected there will be additional 1 to 3 GPs will be required.
Mm.
And we'll talk about the GPs only. You can have online health and other people on top of that, medical practitioners, but the GP only 1 to 3 is the anchor of the business.
Yeah.
And also we have noted the council has a very clear policy framework to support regional healthcare hub in the area. So that's not a market, that's not a supply demand assessment, but that policy support perspective. But but when you compare the two scenarios or development options here, childcare and medical center clearly stands out better. Because the childcare center, 14 to 18 is a quite low number. You don't make up 70%, 70 places. And also you don't have you can't take a much market share right now, just given that it's only 3 to 1 and 70% occupancy rate. There's not much room to move around in the current market. So overall, we believe the recommendation, we believe the medical center will be the better option. So
that's
clients that's very important, because if without this piece of work, and then clients may just go, I want to go for a childcare center. Yeah. And then when you spend 50, 20, I don't know how much in New South Wales charge, but if you are costing, say, $40,000 for town planning application, and then you've got a permit waiting for 6 months, and you go for the market to get the operators on board, you may not get anyone. So you're wasting your money and time for something that may not be developed or wanted in the market. So in this case, go ahead.
I was going to say, in terms of operators, is it a better strategy to identify an operator that's looking for sites to begin with in a particular area? I mean, I would have thought that might be the better strategy. Or are you finding that most people are going, identify the site, I deliver the product, and then I find an operator?
For the first scenario, people knowing a site or having a site, they come to me. Often that's people where they already own the site, or they're interested in acquiring a site to do something, or the agent, real estate agent. So they want to know what the market says at the moment before they actually take on the project as a general development site or as a development site for childcare center only. So that will help them to inform their business, their marketing campaign, and also knowing how much they can charge as well. Like in this identical design on the same size of land at different suburbs, you can ask for a very different price. With a more demand, with suburb with more demand, you can ask for a lot more than the other suburb with too much supply. So the agent will utilize information to help them to prepare a marketing campaign and strategy to support their sales or lease.
Out of interest, what was the zoning for this particular site?
Commercial.
Okay.
Commercial law. And then also to answer your another scenario you mentioned about to look at for the suburbs first before you look into the site. Yeah. And yes, we do work with the clients on that space. So what we can do, we can look at a region, we divide to smaller area to see what kind of ratio and the growth potential, do a modeling on that. And the clients may nominate from that stage 1 piece of work and then stage 2, and the clients can nominate some area, and then we can dive in to see how the centers are performing. Really need the two information together come to play. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
I sort of imagine a report which would have some sort of like heat mapping, and I'm not sure if this is something that you do.
I do heat mapping.
Yeah, so to be able to say, this is obviously a really popular area that obviously the numbers stack up maybe we need to talk after this, Hong.
Yes, heat mapping.
I might come. I might come work for you. And yeah, the heat mapping, and then I guess then there's the opportunities to go. All right, well, we drill down into the heat map. We can drill down further into specific areas that we can focus on and find sites.
Yes, yes, we can. We use QGIS a lot in our work. So basically, the stage one, when we look at the regional level, divided to smaller pockets of suburbs, and the final piece of work for the stage one is just give you a map, basically, showing the ratio. The darker color is a greater ratio. The lighter color is a less ratio. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I like that. Easy to pick out. Well, there you go. It's a no-brainer. Like this is all the information and the research you've done for people. So, goodness, anyone looking at childcare or medical centers, you know who to go to. All right, this is exciting. So there's case study 1. Are we on to case study 2?
Sure. Case study 2. I can't give you the location right now, but it's a 3,000 square meters vacant land in proximity to a major shopping center. So our needs assessment confirmed that there will be a need for around 50 to 65 places by 2026, and the possibility of taking up some market share because there's a really high occupancy rate and a waiting list for enrollment. So in great demand, those centers are. So the client decided to build and design and build a new childcare center with 73 places. And then there was some surplus land because he doesn't need that 3,000 square meters land for the childcare center. So in the end, they chopped some out for townhouse development on the surplus land. So what they give to the clients is we help the clients mitigate their risk, and they diversify their profile by having childcare center and some townhouses, and then maximize their return.
I love that. I'm in love with that.
Thank you.
How much space was, in terms of the land space, was used for the childcare center?
So for that case, I think it's 1,000. 1,200, I think, or 500. I can't remember that project. Yes, somewhere between 1,200 to 1,500 for the childcare center.
And the zoning for that, was that
residential zone?
That's residential. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the other. It comes back to as well when you said if the childcare center has passed its use by date, the opportunity for it to then be redeveloped back into residential if the need is there.
Yes, correct.
Excellent. I really like that. And this one it was in your sweet spot, which is set between 70 to 100 places.
Yes.
Oh, that's going to be an exam at the end. I can feel it coming.
Yes.
90% occupancy rate. This is one. So when it says the forecast a need of additional 50 to 60 places by 2026, does that mean that it will build up to that many spots being filled, or what does that mean?
So that means that in 2026, if we build a center, say 50 places, that should be all taken up.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's saying that's in like 5 years from now.
Yes, because they haven't designed the building at the time. They're planning. But the time they get the design through, get the construction or get the tenancy, you get the leasing campaign and negotiation, building permit, planning permit, building permit. So by the time they start to open the business or get someone on board, we are looking at 2026.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or sooner than that, but you need to budget for a period. But we can you can tell me any period you want. We can do the modeling for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did a project the other day. We did a project for until 36, sorry, because they want to look in much more beyond that 5 years term. So it depends.
Are you finding that operators are are wanting to, I guess, develop more so themselves, or do you find operators typically are more than happy for the developer to take the development risk and then slot themselves in?
For independent operators, they intend to rent, take out a lease, because running a childcare center is quite expensive to set it up. So they rather not spending money to acquire the land and get a loan for the building. They just want to focus on the business itself. Unless you already own the business, own a few sites, and even though you're independent, but you kind of own a few sites, different story. But yes, often you see more tenancies in childcare centers. For operators, what they do is, with my experience, is that they will rent. They don't really own the building itself. But it depends on their business models. Often, I think most of the time, they tenant the buildings for childcare centers. For medical centers, they like to own it sometimes. Because one medical doctor group, he said to me, I'm keeping paying the rent, but the building value goes up so much.
I might as well own it myself.
Yes. And that group owns five medical centers.
Yes.
So it's kind of independent group, right? It's not a big franchise. But they are moving towards owning the site. That's why it depending on their business model and where they're at with their cash flow and their expertise, their capability.
Yeah. And so this is this may or may not be a tricky one. If you had a developer that was saying, oh, should I go down and start focusing on childcare centers, or should I focus on medical centers? Is there enough evidence to show that one is probably a greater demand in the next 10 to 20 years than the other? Or it really just depends?
It depends where you're at. The people living there, it's really hard to say.
Excellent. So much food for thought. I think I've asked plenty of questions. I did warn you to say that they would just come up when as we're going through, but that was fantastic. Anyone that's listening, thank you so much. I mean, if you've got any questions and you have a site that you want to be able to assess, particularly the demand and supply assessment and the market analysis for whether it's a childcare center or any other type. What are the other types of assessments that you conduct as well?
Yes, Cheryl, thanks for the opportunity. We do a lot of medical and healthcare projects. So if you want to have a site, you want to do a medical center or do an allied health center, well-being center is in trendy terms. And we are doing a hospital job at the moment for market assessment. So healthcare is another major service we deliver. And also, if you own a piece of land, you are thinking about to rezone the land or to say from farming. So open the supermarket, as I explained earlier, we do the modeling and supply demand assessment to inform the needs. So
Excellent.
Retail, housing, apartment townhouses. All sorts.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Hong. It sounds like it's bedtime at your house.
Can you hear that? Sorry.
Don't worry, mine often are screaming on the way up, so that's absolutely fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was fantastic, Hong. I appreciate your time, sharing your knowledge. I am absolutely blown away and obviously very intrigued by this space. I love that. I mean, there's so many moving parts around it, and I'm sure you're one that absolutely loves looking at the data and being able to tell a story through what the data is saying to you. So that's quite a skill and quite a
Thank you.
talent. And I've been very, very honored to have you here to share your time with us, Hong. Again, anyone that wants to be able to reach out to her, phone number down the bottom, website as well. Definitely have a chat to you if you're looking at any childcare, medical, any of these areas as well. So thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and I'm sure we'll see you around. And thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Take care. See you next week. Bye bye.
Bye, Cheryl.